Good morning, gamers. Tyler and Max back again for another Edge of Eternities preview season. Correct, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways,
No other set getting previewed anytime soon.
no, sir. Not in 3 days.
You're dating us.
Anyway, speaking of dates, I completely forgot the date that I was supposed to say. Friday the 4th, which should be in a couple days, hopefully, is our pre-release for Edge of Eternities. So, if you're looking forward to the set and want to come on out, that's our only time. Probably at 7, I'd assume. I don't really know that many details.
6:30?
Show up, I guess. If you're looking for any of these cards, once again, come on down to our store in St. Catharines or to mechagames.ca and pick up these hot singles, essentially.
What do we got? What do we got this time?
There we go.
What do we got?
We got Edge of Eternities with you, the humble viewer of this video. Of course, our set review breakdown. So we have, card cycles. 5 kind of share the same idea. They only have one this set, so not too much there. We got high interest cards. The playmakers, the ones that we feel are gonna, break the format wide open. Medium ones are probably gonna see a little bit play here or there. Might pick up some steam, but they're not as crazy as the high end. Low interest is probably the ones that might get squeezed out by more tried and true methods. We could be wrong, but who knows? Cards with the potential are ones that seem pretty strong. They just want the very niche support they need to kind of take advantage of their toolbox. Package deals. These are cards that we'll see kind of be played together. We might see some interesting stuff pop up with those, and of course, personal pickups. What me and Tyler are getting. So, how you feel with the set, Tyler?
It's interesting. I'm always happy to be back to an actual Magic IP. They always have something interesting cooking. Universities Beyond is fun, but I find it always refreshing to be back in these kind of new funky worlds. Lots of cool artifacts.
Yeah.
Some new mechanics.
And without further ado, speaking of new mechanics, with our first and only card cycle, we have planets. So these are lands. They all come in tapped. They all have station. So station is simply you may tap it at sorcery speed to put charge counters equal to that creature's power.
Yeah, a lot like crew. We'll also have some spaceships and space stations that kind of use this as well. Unlock extra effects on your cards down the line.
So some of these are a little rough around the edges. The white one is not the best. A key part about this is to think about what decks don't mind tapping, a bulk of their creatures down to get this ability, and then can kind of use that ability afterwards to a successful spot. The white one, 3 white tap, create a token that's a copy of target artifact or champion control. It's legendary, activate only as a sorcery. So no deck is really going to kind of have that spot for that I can think of right now. Decks might be able to pop up out of this. There is the impending overlords from Dustborn, which can be pretty cool with these, but once again, you're putting 12 power in, you're getting a tapped land, and there's also a turning to do this. So, turn 6 at best if you're jumping through, the 20 hoops to get there.
They're probably too slow. It seemed they played it super, super safe, having, a ton of charge counters you need to stack up on these. If you're getting 12 plus power into play over the course of the game, just hit your opponent. A lot of these are just very, 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 very slow, unfortunately. You can proliferate the counters to try to get ahead on that, but it's not like we have a ton of stuff that does that. They're charge counters specifically, so you could do maybe Dice Factory things where you're moving counters around, which could be okay.
But
so none of these really
playing a tapped land. I think the land bases for those decks are very...
Yeah, none of these lands are very good for that style of deck. Except maybe the blue one. but there are better ways to kind of ramp yourself in those decks
Blue
already.
Yeah, I think blue would better be in like a affinity shell. Like that's just like two constructs that like won't swing the turn they're played, which is
That's
not.
true. It's not terrible, but again, it's like you're playing a tap land alongside your Urza Saga. You have two other lands probably.
And you're playing Mox and stuff. The mana is very wonky in affinity because sometimes you need to play like 3 mana for your 6 drops. Sometimes it's just one, and you're just kind of shuffling through your deck at that point. The green one though, that is an elf card if I've ever seen one. So when elves are played, they have a lot of tapping themselves down, getting untapped, stuff like that. So that can kind of fit as like the only spot I'd see it in. Outside of that though, it will be seen in Commander.
I think you're gonna find with all these station cards, they've set the bar too high for the number of counters you need to really get where it's going. So for constructed play, these are probably not going anywhere.
The red one is pretty interesting. It's just, one in a red, tap, sacrifice a land, create a 2/2 colorless robot, artifact creature token, then creatures control get +1, gain haste, which is pretty strong. It's just what.
It's crazy that you have to sacrifice a land after tapping down 12 power. Again, if you're playing a deck that wants to attack quickly with your creatures, just attack with them. You don't have to tap them to station.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of the better effects out of it. I'd say
For sure.
we have a pretty good lineup here, like left to right, worst to best, I'd say.
I mean, you want these to be payoffs after you've spent all this time to set them up, and this and the white one are probably the best payoffs because your green and your blue are still setting up for something else. You're making a bunch of mana, you still need a payoff to spend that mana on. So
Classic
it's just
Commander.
awkward.
If I get my 5 cards out, this combo will pay off.
I mean, you can pay off into a setup, into a payoff, into a setup for forever, or setup into setup into setup into setup into payoff.
Let's keep rolling. And then we have Susor, Secundi, Void Altar. 1 in black, tap, pay 2 life, sacrifice a creature, draw cards equal to that sacrifice creature's power, activate only as a sorcery. I'd say out of all 5, this one's the most reasonable to get to 12, just because a lot of the decks that would want to sack like to just kind of reanimate their creatures. So having like a young wolf die 5 times and just getting tapped between it, or a like Cauldron Familiar or like a Gravecrawler, it's out of all of them probably one of the easier ones to hit. It's just you're paying so much into it after. Like you're losing life, you're paying 3 mana, and then it's at sorcery speed, so you can't play around interaction that well. And the problem is you're drawing, usually at best for your recursive threats, like 2 cards. So it's 3 mana, pay 2 life, draw 2.
The fact that you have to commit to not attacking or blocking if you're going to station is just like ramps up the cost on getting any counters on these. I'm still surprised that it's 12 counters.
Yeah, if it was like 10, it's a little rough. It's just, I think if all the abilities just cost 1 less, somewhat playable.
I think we've just been finding. I think what we're seeing is WotC playing very, very safe when it comes to like the lands that they're printing.
It's a shame because we've been getting some interesting ones.
Yeah, every now and again there's. I mean, they gave us really good MDFCs in Modern Horizons 3.
That's the modern.
Of course.
Anyways,
Surveil lands.
we'll probably get
Huge.
push lands in Spider-Man. Anyways, on to high interest. We have, to start us off, Tanuki, Steadfast Second, 2 red, 3/5. Other creatures you control have haste. Artifact cards and red creature cards in your hand have warp, 2 and a red. For those who don't know, warp is much like evoke, where you play it out, and then at the end of your turn you exile it, then you play it again for its full cost at a later time. So this is probably the best option you'll get for sneak attack in standard. It's kind of interesting. The problem is 4 mana. and then 3 mana the next turn after usually. It's a chunky cost, but I mean, getting something down with haste is pretty cool if it is a red creature or artifact.
Yeah, I mean, your reanimate style decks can kind of get around graveyard hate, similar to how Sneak Attack has in the past in formats like Legacy. You could also play a card like this in Legacy, where you have your soul lands. Like Red Stompy is a deck that's been around a lot recently, especially in Legacy, and then you could just put cards into play cheaper. Your like Fury you spend 3 mana on will have haste. 3 mana is tapping 2 lands. This guy's comes out on turn 2 or turn 3 pretty easily. It's an interesting card. He's maybe a slightly too expensive to really land in a very solid spot, but something that in brews in your different formats probably can come up. Probably a Menace and Commander as well. You just drop your big bomb artifacts for 3 mana, like Phyrexian Portal for 3 mana. Pretty good. You get to
Citadel.
That's true as well. You get to replay them later after you try to go off or after your Phyrexian Portal, edicts all your opponents. Very cool card design.
Yeah, we will have to wait and see on that one. Next, we have Famished Worldsire. So 5 green, green, green. Ward 3, 0/0 to devour lands 3s. For those who don't know, Devour is you pay into it by sacrificing, the aforementioned cards. So this would be lands, making it counters equal to the numbers. So for each land, it gets 3 counters. And when this enters, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the creature's power. Put any number of land cards from among them on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So this is not a Titan card; it's a Titan adjacent card. So this is, I feel, something that can kind of pop up in those hipster Titan cards. Titan players don't want to do Titan, but want something similar. We've seen a lot of sack effects kind of pop up in Titan. There's the loops with Lotus Field, stuff like that. So this could be something added there for more just fuel for that. 8 mana is more than the usual cost, which would be around 6 or 7 for your high cost drops. So that could kind of push it out of viability, but it's interesting.
Yeah, it's green, it's big, it interacts with lands. It's probably still worse than Cultivator Colossus for any of the Titan decks, but maybe your Pioneer Landfall decks playing like Aftermath Analysts and stuff like this, maybe this is something you might reach for. It's another card in those toolkits where it may be more and more relevant depending on what you're playing against, what you're playing, what you're trying to build.
And on to, the big whammy of the set. Tezzeret, Cruel Captain, 3 colorless for a Planeswalker, 4 loyalty at the start. So it's 0 cost, untap target artifact creature. If it's an artifact creature, put a counter on it. -3, search your library for an artifact card with mana value 1 or less, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. -7, you get an emblem with at the beginning of combat on your turn, with 3 counters on target artifact you control. If it's not a creature, it becomes a 0/0 robot artifact creature. Whenever an artifact you control enters, put a loyalty counter on Tezzeret. This is
sweet.
A sweet card indeed. This is, a saga that lets you bring stuff out. This lets you put pressure with, your artifacts. So those, one-time tap effects, you can do that again. If it's an artifact creature, you put a counter on it. It can be very important for one deck. And the ultimate is a crazy one, just making all of your, artifacts turn into bigger and bigger creatures over time. It's a very good effect to have. And if both you and your opponent are kind of sitting around twiddling your thumbs, an emblem that just progressively makes your board scarier is very good to have.
Yeah, we have this package of cards in Modern that's not white found a home of like Tameo, Emery, Mox Opal, Mox Amber. Um, you have Ori Steelcutter that works really, really well with these cards. And this card just slots in with everything that those decks are typically doing. You untap your Emery to bring something else back. You untap one of your Moxes. You just have an extra mana. You minus the sky, get a 0-cost artifact, play it. He gets a loyalty. You have an extra mana. You play this guy, play a bunch of artifacts. Maybe you can ult him immediately. That's gonna happen not very often, but some amount of the time. It's when any artifact enters. So you play this guy, you attack with Tamo, you make your clue, artifact, ultimate him, and the blue-black decks out there are gonna begin to struggle against this emblem, kind of churning out creatures every turn. An awesome card. Probably see 2 or 3 pop up in these kind of shells. Are they gonna bust? Is it gonna bust them open? Probably not. But it's a tool that they keep adding, and eventually, post Underworld Breach ban, we're gonna see this deck kind of pop up again and probably do a lot of damage.
This does get around one of the biggest kind of artifact hate cards out there, which would be Wrath of the Skies pretty nicely.
Yeah, people can definitely get to 3. Oh, because it doesn't remove planeswalkers.
Yeah, so this kind of sits around.
Yeah,
also,
and then, your meltdowns, of course, aren't going to hit it.
A lot of the artifact lands being played right now are indestructible.
Yeah,
so
you typically don't even see the artifact lands getting played in these decks, which is the interesting thing.
I still see Darksteel Citadel, I think.
It's only really in the pure affinity decks, the kind of thing I'm thinking of. They generally don't even play these at all, just because you have your 12. You can play 12 0-mana artifacts that are all really good. You have Bauble and both Opals, and then Tameo is kind of an honorary artifact making you clues.
Yeah, and they might pop in now just because, say you have that one indestructible artifact land out, and you have the emblem, just getting a unkillable threat progressively bigger is a very nice card to have.
Yeah, the regular affinity players should love this card.
Next we have Emissary Escort, so 1 in a blue for a 0/4. This creature gets +X, +0, or X is the greatest mana value among other artifacts you control.
Just a really good affinity card. Not
affinity?
Much more to say.
Leyline Draco. Because it's just 12 power on it.
It's true. You probably need a higher density of artifacts than what Zoo plays. But yeah, your Leyline X decks, or just affinity in general, you just play a 7-drop artifact for 2 mana or 0 mana or 1 mana or whatever you have. And you just have a massive guy. And then a 0/4 blocks everything, and it dodges Bolt and Galvanic Discharge, so it's kind of everything you want to see.
A good blocker that can just swing in and kill someone. Next we have the Dominion Bracelet for 2, which is an equipment. Equip 1. Equipped creature has +1/+1 and has 15. Exile the Dominion Bracelet. You control target opponent during their next turn. Ability costs X less to activate, where X is the creature's power. Activate only as a sorcery. Notably,
unlike 13 mana Emrakul, it doesn't give your opponent an extra turn. You just control the next one, so it's kind of more of a time walk, where you control their turn and then it's right back to you. That being said, it's probably still worse than 13 mana Emrakul. The equipment decks tend to want to be lower to the ground and more resilient and aren't trying to play these kinds of effects typically. But maybe it finds a home. It's a very, very powerful effect, so if you can get this off, it's almost certainly a winning play to activate one of these. Just getting to around the 10 mana mark, say, it's going to be hard for equipment decks.
It will be interesting to see what happens. Next we have Frenzied Bailout, green, 3/2. This spell can't be countered. Tribal Haste. Creature spells control can't be countered. Combat damage can't be prevented. This
Oh baby.
is this is a just green stick to hit your opponent with. We've seen these abilities elsewhere. Your questing beast, your shepherd, the elf one, Allosaur shepherd, etc., etc. They're all in one creature, and it's not a bad body to boot.
No,
It's
it's absolutely a fantastic card. You've seen in standard this kind of card see really really great results in like your mid-range decks. This is also going to be obviously a good aggro card. It has haste, it has trample, it prevents damage being prevented. um, but your Blood Tithe Harvester, your Mosswood Dread Knights, like the 2 mana 3/2 that gives you extra bonuses, are just good. Lets you be aggressive, protect some of your stuff. um, this is something I'm I'm really really wanting to try in like post rotation, like Golgari mid range maybe. Um, give you lots of really really good 2 drops. Double green is a tough casting cost when you don't have like really really good fixing, but you can probably get away with it. I think just fine.
Mhm. Next we have Pinnacle Emissary, so one blue and a red, 3/3. It has warp, red or blue. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 called the Strone artifact creature token flying, and this creature can block only creatures with flying. So for 1 mana, essentially, you can just thumb your hand, make a bunch of 1/1 flyers, and kind of enjoy the afterglow.
Yeah, the fact that warp lets you recast the spell later is makes these kind of like weird adventure spells. Where if you think about it, it's basically for 1 mana you get the static till end of turn, and then you just get to play the creature later. Um, this is going to be really good with like that new Tezzeret. It's going to be good with all the kind of cards we're talking about surrounding that card in general. It's going to be good with your probably your Steel Cutters and all your 0 mana artifacts, where you can just flood the board. And this again with Tezzeret, it's going to double the number of counters you're going to put on him. And very quickly he's going to ultimate. He might even stick around after that. Even if your opponent has to swing to kill it because he's low, that's always a W when your planeswalkers fog your opponent a little bit. Just a super sweet card.
Mm-hmm. Next we have Ice Tail Explorer, 2 green green for a 2/4. You play an additional land on each of your turns. You play lands from your graveyard. Whenever a land control enters, mill a card. Once again, this is another potential Titan card. This could also maybe see some play in Standard. We only have one kind of land that'll end up in your graveyard with Fabled Passage, but
No, standard has a couple. There's one from
Evolving Wilds.
there's one from Murders that also does. It's the like mini Rogue's
Escape
Passage
Tunnel?
one, Escape Tunnel. Yeah, there's a couple. I think it's standard. I've been seeing like mono green Landfall be a deck. Is it very good? Maybe not, but it's a deck that people are playing. It's a deck that people can absolutely win with. This is probably really good for those decks because you will. I mean, if you play this, like when you play this on turn 4, you can get 2 triggers right away with one of those fetch lands, even if it's something you've already played. On later turns, that's 4 triggers because you just play it twice, fetch twice. That's it's a pretty good top end for that kind of deck. And then again, you know, Titan, you can play one of these and tutor it out.
Fun stuff. And then for probably the coolest card of the set, Ragost Deft Gastronaut. For Boros, you get a 2/2. Artifacts you control are food, in addition to their other types, and have 2 tap. Sacrifice this artifact, you gain 3 life. He has 1 untap, sacrifice a food. Ragost deals 3 damage to each opponent. Beginning of each end step, if you gain life this turn, untap Ragost. So this is an amazing card, probably the best one we've seen ever in the history of Magic. But on a more serious note, Making your artifacts have additional types is always good. Uh, Especially with food. Food has a lot of kind of important abilities centered around it. You have Asmo, Cauldron Familiar. It's one of those artifacts that I think probably the most used like token card, like keyword, like effects and stuff.
It's got a lot of different fun cards to play with.
There is a combo that I enjoy with it, with like Goblin Bombardment, Cauldron Familiar, and Sword of the Meek.
Right.
Because Sword of the Meek, you sack it to Cauldron Familiar, comes back, attaches to it, sack Cauldron Familiar. Very fun combo. It's also just it deals 3 damage each turn if you have the artifacts to supply it.
Yeah, you can play like Synthesizer, which wants to be sacrificed
Or just Cookbook,
because it
actually.
becomes a food. We don't want to sacrifice your
Well, you got the food you make from Cookbook.
sure, but like yeah, like there's artifacts that want to be sacrificed. It lets you sacrifice anything as a food, right? So you can play these kind of like artifact aggro cards like Synthesizer. Um, pr- I'm gonna soul read and say it's not enough for modern, but maybe standard, probably more realistically pioneer. So white is usually not what you're playing. You're usually playing Rakdos or Jund in these kinds of things. So not sure what white opens up for you.
Um,
Yeah, you could play Mardu. I don't know what you pick up else in white maybe, but this is a very powerful card.
it'll be interesting to see what happens to it. That's for sure. Next, we have medium interest. To start off, we have Anti-Causal Vestige. So 6 for a 7/5 with Warp 4. Whenever this creature leaves the battlefield, draw a card. Then you may put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands control from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. So most important part is this says Eldrazi on its creature type. So this is your Eldrazi Temple, Ugin's Labyrinth. Warp 4, so that means it can come down on turn 2. It's not going to be the best, but I mean, worst case scenario, you just put another land in, it can just ramp you.
That's true. The problem is that it's limiting you to the number of lands you control and not like what you spent on the card.
Thank God.
Which is probably for the best. It's also not 7 mana, so you can't imprint it to Ugin's Lab. Probably not something they'd pick up. But it's definitely an interesting card. It's got a powerful effect.
Yep. If they ever decide to ban command, this card can maybe pop. Next we have Exalted Sunborn, so 3 white for 4/5 with warped 1 and a white. Flying lifelink. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. So whenever we have token doubling is always an important thing. Especially at 2 mana is probably the cheapest effect you'll get. Elspeth is seeing some play right now.
Yeah, typically that's like the mono white token control deck. So it's like you have this good planeswalker, it triggers your draw spells. It's a planeswalker in your control deck. You're not really looking to double your token so much in that deck, just because you're kind of a slow control deck. But maybe this opens up for faster styles of that sort of thing.
Yeah, we have Voice of Victory and Stadium Headliner from Arkir. So playing those out turn 1, turn 2, playing this out on turn 3, and just getting like double to those tokens can be pretty good. And then the doubles don't go away, correct? With Mobilize?
I think on this effect they would get sacrificed, but I'm not 100% sure
Yeah.
of that.
Oh well. And then next we have Astili Reclaimer, so 3 white again for 5/4 warp 2 and a white flying. When this creature enters, return target non-land permanent on a creature non-land permanent card with mana value X or less from a graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast this creature. So even if you don't, pay for it, i.e., you blink it or you reanimate it, it's going to bring back a 0 cost, which can be somewhat important sometimes. But getting 2 of those effects on this is pretty good. 3 mana for 3 mana is kind of rough sometimes, but getting as much value as you can from a card is always important.
Yeah, you got to remember that these are kind of adventure spells where warp is your first part, and then you'll play the regular spell later. Um, this might actually be solid in like black white blink, even though if you blink it, like you don't get the ETB effect again. But you do your turn 2 failure, play this on turn 3, get something else back maybe.
Play like Bobble with it.
Yeah, sure. And like you just get back one of your like 2 drops from earlier. You flicker this with Failure. You flicker this with Ephemerate, Flicker Wisp, whatever you have. You get a creature, probably a creature back into play. Oh, I guess it's not a creature. Yeah, then you can't do that.
So yeah,
I don't know who wants
Bobble,
this.
baby.
Yeah, just bring back Bobble.
Just bring back Bobble 20 times. Bioengineered Future. 1 green green. When this enchantment enters, create a lander token. Lander is simply 2 to tap. Fetch a basic from your deck. Each creature you control enters with an additional 1/1 counter on it for each land that entered the battlefield under your control this turn. As Tyler's been talking about, we've been seeing landfall pop up in standard. There's also just a lot of counters, like 1/1 counter matters cards in modern Pioneer Standard. Getting more cards, more effects for those decks can always be helpful. And this is just in modern, just a fetch land getting 2 counters on any additional creature played after is pretty good.
Yeah. You also have cards like Biotech Specialist. Also creates a lander token when it enters. 2 mana 1/3. When you sacrifice an artifact, it deals 2 damage to target opponent. So again, if you want to play these sacrifice artifact style decks, this is going to start pinging down your opponents pretty quickly. Creates a token for you to utilize for this. Supports these kind of artifacts as well.
Yeah, and just there's a lot of sacrificing artifacts in some decks. Getting more lands in those decks is always nice. Deck thinning is always an important thing to do when you can.
It's a shame that he's not an artifact himself, but maybe that's going too far.
Yeah. But I mean, it's interesting. It's also 1/3 is a good stat line to have. So we will see. Next we have Lightstall Inquisitor, 1-drop, 2/1 Vigilance Angel Wizard. When this creature enters, each opponent exiles a card from their hand. It may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. Each spell cast this way costs 1 more to cast. Each land played this way enters tapped. So, Angel, Tyler.
It is an angel. People who like these kind of like small white stacks, creature decks, dare I say death and taxes, at the risk of incurring those players' wraths. It's a very cool card design. Where exactly it's going to fit, it's interesting. It does have 2 types that are kind of fringe relevant in different formats. Yeah, I mean, if you play this, maybe again, like flicker it is what I'm thinking about a lot this set. A lot of powerful ETBs. If you play this and you keep flickering it, you're really going to eat away at your opponent's hand. They can still cast them for 1 more, but the difference between 1 mana 2 is twice as much mana, especially in your formats like Modern, where your mana efficiency is going to be everything. Every format cares about your mana efficiency, some more than some are going to get more punished than others. But I mean, Black-White doesn't really have any good 1-drop creatures it's playing right now, so maybe this is something you can get away with. The 1 toughness is a little tough into Onslaught Pride, Bowmaster, stuff like this. But definitely a very powerful, cool, unique effect.
The body's just a plus. Also, there's a lot of effects that can hamper people from playing from exile.
Yeah.
So, kind of the 1/2 punch.
Even Interrupter, which Black-White players like to play as well, even in the main deck, works well with this. It's going to cost a total of 3 to cast anything interrupted.
Mm-hmm. And it's also just like even like mid game or late game where you're both kind of like top decking, just forcing a card out of your opponent's hand can be really important. So it's not the worst card to get late game. Very nice. It'll be interesting. Pinnacle Star Cage, 1 white. When this artifact enters, exile all artifacts and creatures with value 2 or less until this artifact leaves the battlefield. It has 6 white. Put each card exiled with this artifact into its owner's graveyard. Then create a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token. For each card put into a graveyard this way, sacrifice this artifact.
The important thing is it's replacing temporary lockdown because Dominaria United is going to rotate out when this set comes out. So fear not, white players in Standard, you're still going to have this very, very powerful effect. It's just hitting artifacts and creatures rather than all kinds of permanents. So you might start to miss
the battles, enchantments.
Some enchantments is going to be probably the big one. I mean, you weren't ever hitting. There's not 2-mana planeswalkers you're hitting, at least in Standard. And then your other formats, you can just play lockdown still.
I mean, thankfully, Beanstalk is out of Standard, so that's one of the most important enchantments out of the way.
Yeah. But like otherwise, I think this does a pretty good job just slotting right back into that same slot. I think it's a very important effect for Standard to have. So I'm glad that we're not fully losing it.
The big red button for when you need it. And then next we have Memorial Vault for 3 in a red. Sacrifice another artifact. Exile the top X cards of your library, where X is 1 plus the mana value of that sacrifice artifact. You play those cards this turn. Once again, if you are playing Affinity, this could be interesting. You know, playing your 7-drop. Draw 2 cards? What was it?
Oh, like Thought Monitor?
Yeah, Thought Monitor. Exiling it, getting 8 cards out of it would be pretty good, and then usually the Affinity cards don't cost that much. So we're seeing a lot of Affinity support this time, which is pretty interesting. 4 mana is a steep cost.
And then you have to exile something with ideally a larger mana cost. So I think again we're maybe running into a payoff for my payoff kind of issue.
I mean,
it's a cool effect. I think in like something like Commander, it's a really great card to pick up.
I mean, this helps really well with your Leyline Axe if he wants to pick that card up. So it's letting Affinity kind of stop playing around all the early drops as much, because Breath of the Sky is always present in Modern. That kind of shuts Affinity out pretty handily. So getting other options for how they want to play their deck is always nice. 4 mana is probably a little too much of an asking cost, but getting 9 cards out of it is pretty nice sometimes. Next, we have Looming Class Frigate, 1 in a white station. When it has 2 counters on it, other creature control get +1/+1. When it's 12+, this becomes a 3/5 flying lifelink creature. Usually, you'll probably never see the 12+ unless you're reaching Mecha Game and the creatures you're kind of putting down don't swing immediately.
They love this 12+ on their station.
Yeah. I mean, on the bright side, you are pumping up any creature you cast out, so
which
it's
will
not,
definitely speed that up.
Yes, this is more like a plus, like a 8 or 10+, which isn't too bad.
Yeah, it's basically an Anthem for 2 mana. That's an artifact. It can be a creature later.
Yeah, I mean, Anthems are always nice to have. This is probably the cheapest Anthem we have, outside of like the case from like Murders, which is also pretty good, but it has its own hoops.
Just being an artifact could be nice. Like there's go wide artifact decks that might play Mox Opal. Like that's like you can play alongside your Esper Sentinels and then the Mox Opals online. Probably a little bit too little of an impact, but it's a card to keep in mind.
Next we have Low Interest the End Stone for 7 mana. Whenever you play land or cast a spell, draw a card. At the beginning of your end step, your life total becomes half your starting life total, rounded up. So for Commander, you're always at 20. For Modern, you're always at 10, unless you die. It's 7 mana, so it's a little bit of an asking price. Uglin's Labyrinth, of course, does let you kind of tuck this away for later. and having draw a card on everything you do is always nice, but it's big ask for not that much of a board impact when you.
Yeah, I mean, it maybe goes without saying, but imprints to Ugin's Labyrinth, so if you want to play like a control-y Ugin's Labyrinth deck, this maybe fits in there. If you're playing Karn, this could maybe even just slot in your sideboard, and you pull it out there. It's going to be a massive card advantage engine. It's probably competing with the new Ugin, though, which you're probably going to lose out on. Like, Ugin could also stabilize your life total. He gains you life. You can go above 10. With him, which is nice. Being stuck at 10 it's helpful if you're below, but more aggressive decks can deal 10 damage in a turn if they really, really want to.
Unfortunately, and of course, this kind of sort of causes command.
Ugin's also more
value.
like actually interacts immediately. It's higher impact on the board immediately. Obviously, this stabilizes your life total, but it's kind of a setup card. Whereas even if Ugin is immediately removed, he still exiled something. He still took a card with him.
Unfortunately. On to the next one, we have Starfield, the Vocalist, 3 in a blue, 3/4 with Warp, 1 in a blue. A permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger. That ability triggers an additional time. Doubling triggers is always pretty powerful. ETB triggers can be pretty nice. There isn't that many heavy hitters that come to mind right now, but having a 2-cost ability to kind of double them can be pretty. Can make those become, not so good into, backbreaking. So it's an interesting card to look out for.
Yeah, I mean, it doubles your triggers. It's 2 mana.
And next we have Cosmic Grand Zenith. 2 in a white. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, choose 1. Create 2 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens. Put a counter on each creature you control. Unfortunately, this is kind of just a worse steel cutter.
Which isn't legal in standard anymore.
They banned it?
They banned Core Steel Cutter.
Really?
Yeah, along with like 6 other
I
cards.
thought they just like kneecapped Mouse.
I mean, they kneecapped Red.
So Steel Cutter's back on the menu, boys.
Yeah. Goodbye, Corey Steel Cutter. Welcome back.
Yeah.
Corey Steel Cutter. It's 1 more mana, and it's a creature, which are both very relevant. It's slower, and it's much easier to kill a creature than an artifact for most decks.
But this gets out of hand fast.
Good for your human decks as well, which is something to think about for like Pioneer. Like Pioneer mono white humans is still a decent archetype. And this is either going to go super wide or take your board that's already wide and pump everything up.
Yeah, just getting like 2 triggers on this, going from like a 4/6 board after you make the 2 humans to a 7/10 board.
Or even for your like Convoke style decks, right? Like it doesn't even have to be. It puts a counter on each creature you control, so they don't even have to be humans for anything on this card.
Yeah, Convoke has been. Oh my god. I'm gonna break that phone in half.
Have you been looking for your phone for a while?
Hi guys.
Is it getting cut out?
I just started looking for
Oh, okay.
Get out, Mom! Get
No!
out! Get out!
Alright, I'll see you guys at my house in about an hour.
Alright. See you later, sugar. Alright. More work for me. Hey guys, we're back. Anyways, consult the star charts. 1 in a blue, kicker, 1 in a blue. For those of you who don't know, kicker is an additional cost to the spell cast, so this will be a total of 4 mana. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of lands you control. One of those cards into your hand. If the spell is kicked, put 2 of those cards into your hand instead. Put the rest of the body of your library in a random order. Is Stuck Up banned in standard?
No,
Alright.
that one survived.
This is, very obviously a cheaper stock up. You do get the 1 less card for the 1 less mana. And then later down the line, you get one less look for the same amount of cards.
Well, stock up always looks at what, 5 cards?
Yeah, 5, pick 2.
And gets 2. So it's interesting. Like, it is obviously very similar. I think the question is, how much do you value instant speed, and are you a deck that is playing is going to try to hit lots of land draw? I think this card, if it is going to see play over stock up, it's probably going to be like a blue counterspell deck that's probably slower. So we're looking at control, because you can hold up your interaction on your opponent's turn, cast this if they don't do anything, or they don't do anything you care to interact with. It's going to look at more cards, if you or same amount of cards at 5 lands and then more after that than stock up does. So I think it's very much worth testing. It's a very cool card. I would probably be really, really, really high on this if stock up didn't exist. So I would definitely pick some of these up, give them a try in your like blue-white control shelves or something like that. It's probably it's going to be worse than like Memory Deluge and like Pioneer probably. But it reminds me of Memory Deluge, and that was a huge card for blue-white control and standard when that was part of rotation.
Mm-hmm. Next we have Arch Enemy's Charm for a total of 3 black mana with a choose 1, so exile target creature or planeswalker. Return 1 or 2 target creatures and or planeswalker cards from your graveyard to your hand, and then put 2 counters on target creature control against the lifelink until end of turn.
Third charm we've seen.
Yeah, we got blue, green.
Took us a while to see a second one, and now we're seeing a third pretty quickly after Archdruid's Charm.
We might see one in Lorwyn.
Yeah, what we need, red and white.
Yeah, so probably white, I assume. Githkin.
Red storm card.
Oh,
so it's gonna
that's
not
really
get
the
reduced.
worst storm card because you can reduce it. But Tyler's alter ego loves this.
No, this card's super sweet. Exile-based removal is super relevant in Standard and Pioneer. I mean, it's always relevant.
Yeah, less relevant in Standard now. The big bad.
Sure, but it definitely still is you still have Enduring Curiosity and Enduring Innocence, where if you are exile-based removal for mono black especially, very, very nice to have. This is a card that can hit Enduring Curiosity, which is going to be a big problem for black decks. Typically, you're playing mono black if you're playing something with triple black whip in it. Creature or planeswalker, you'll love to see. It's always fantastic. Planeswalkers are always a problem. Get rid of them. I mean, like with removal, not from the game. And then the other 2 effects are decent as well. Returning to the second one is basically draw 2 in these slower later games. That's going to be super relevant. The last one is okay, but when you need to stabilize against a burn opponent or something like that, that's going to be 5, 6, 7 life very, very easily. Maybe 5 or 6 life.
Yeah,
really easily.
The block would be 5 life, doubling it essentially. Just from stopping,
Yeah, you put 2 counters on your Graveyard Trespasser or your Shalodrid, and you hit your opponent, and then now you're out of sudden burn spell off the top range very, very quickly. Reminds me a little bit of Gix's command. Obviously that one's choose 2, but this is also 2 less mana. But the 2 counters and lifelink on a creature on Gix's command was always relevant. So I wouldn't underestimate that ability, even though it's maybe the weaker of the 3. But dope card.
Also, the draw 2 effect, the return, is probably the best of the draw 2s, especially if you're doing mono black. You have, your Grave Trolls, Shieldred, or the Troll of Khazad-dûm, I mean.
Oh, sure, yeah. You can do
so
something
you just bring back the big hitters when you kind of need them, and it's just drawing 2 win cons is
I'm
very
thinking
nice.
about Pioneer the most, and you will have creatures in your graveyard in that kind of format. Like you'll play, blanking hard on the name. It's black 2/3. It's a vampire. It's got lifelink and death touch. You largely like it stabilizes your life total with life touch. It blocks out anything, even through Monstrous Rage with death touch. It's something that you trade basically against any deck, because the interactive decks are going to kill it, the aggro decks are going to kill it or trade with it. So that's something that's like constantly getting dumped into your graveyard. The Lodred's a problem. Your Liliana of the Veils are a problem. If you have a lot of creatures that if they stick, you're probably doing pretty well, and if they get removed, this can pick them up again if you are like top decking.
Next, and certainly not least, we have Cosmogoyf. For good old Golgari, X and 1+X. This creature's power is equal to the number of cards you own in exile, and its toughness is equal to that number +1. So, for the longest time, Goyf's big problem has been you eat away at the graveyard, it is a 0/1 dummy. But this one becomes a huge beater that will kill you.
So a lot. There basically aren't ways that, or at least the ways that there aren't any good to remove cards from exile. So this is just going to permanently be whatever kind of stat line it gets. A bit harder to have things in exile, but if you want to play like Sultide Frog or something, and your Murktides and your Psychic Frogs grow this, that could be pretty good.
So if you are just playing, raw Golgari, it's a pretty good sideboard card, is swapping out your Goyfs for, the Goyfs that will get buffed when your opponent feeds into them is always nice. But hopefully we can finally see a Goyf take center stage once again.
Yeah, it's just the biggest problem is it's going to be slower than the other Goyfs, but maybe still, like, if you're filling your graveyard and exiling it fast enough, it won't matter.
It will have to wait and see. Halia, Guided by Light, 2 and a white, 3/3 with Warp 1. Whenever Halia or another creature or artifact control enters, you gain a life. In your end step, draw a card if you gain 3 more life this turn. Just a good go wide card. It's drawing you cards, it's gaining you life, it's cost 1 when it's needed, and not a bad style, man. Interesting if you see this pop up.
It's not an angel. Move on.
Then we have Genemorth Imago. For Simic, 1/3 flying landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, triggered creature has base power and toughness 3/3 until end of turn. You control 6 or more lands, that creature has base power and toughness 6/6 until end of turn instead. Some key notes. This isn't just your creatures. So say you have, a 3/4 and swinging in against, a huge beater, you can just play land out, make that huge beater into a 3/3 and trade pretty nicely. You can also just give, your Tifas 2+ additional power.
It's going to be huge. You stack the triggers in a way that her power doubles after becoming a 3/3.
Yeah, that's just an additional trigger right there, like 1.5.
Yeah, because you go from going 1/1 to 2/2
to 4.
You go from 3 to 6.
3 to 6.
Right. It's
12.
It's significantly faster. This guy his floor is kind of a flying 3/3 for 2, which is really, really good. You're going to be able to pressure over your opponent's blockers. You might close out some games this way, especially if you're playing buff spells with like Tifa. Also good, there's the 1-drop Chocobo with Linefall. Jazz's Chocobo, which gets a counter every time a land enters. It's a 0/1. So this is just straight up +3 power on that as well.
There's also just a good, if you just have like a fetch land sitting out, it's very hard to swing into this.
Yeah.
Because if they can beat a 3/3, that means you can just turn that card into a 3/3. And if they have less than 3 power, you can turn it in, etc., etc. It's a pretty good toolbox.
It's also going to help close games if your games go late. Your opponent has lots of removal. You play this next turn, land, 6/6 flyer.
Like late game, just going 6.
It's going to close some games you wouldn't otherwise.
Just like fetch land on turn 6, making 12/12 with it. It will hurt. Next, we have Hard Light Containment for white. Enchant artifact control. When this aura enters, exile target creature and opponent controls until this aura leaves the battlefield. Enchanted permanent has ward 1. These effects are always pretty strong, especially for like the low investment. Once again, there is artifact lands that do have indestructible, so these can be very hard to deal with for certain decks. Unfortunately, this only hits creatures, so sometimes it's not that useful. But like mainly in modern, creatures are kind of the be-all end-all of most decks. So just getting a frog out of the way.
Exile base removal for 1 mana is always going to be good. This requires like a surprising amount of build around. Like it is a little bit limited by its scope. You need lots of artifacts, and this is an enchantment, which is kind of has tension with itself a little bit. So obviously you wouldn't want to be able to enchant this enchantment with itself or something like that. But I mean, it's just super, super, super efficient interaction.
Father's Faithful. 2 to black. When this creature enters, destroy up to 1 other target creature. That creature wasn't dealt damage this turn. Its controller draws 2 cards. So doesn't seem that strong on the face of it, but black removal on a creature is always nice. You target your own stuff to draw cards.
Yeah, you just like village rights on a stick.
It's also 3 mana, which is your Unearth, Chthonian Nightmare, Helping Hand kind of range. So it's kind of in that sweet spot. And worst case scenario, your opponent plays something scary out, and you have very few ways to deal with it. It's now to fail plus range, etc., etc. You can just destroy it. It's interesting. It's probably not going to see that much play. It might be a sideboard card or something like that, but I think it's pretty neat. Next, we have Secluded Starforge. Tap for a colorless mana. 2 and a tap. Tap X untapped artifacts control. Your creature gets plus X until end of turn. Only as a sorcery. 5 and a tap. Create a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token. A good land toolbox is always nice to see. Artifact decks would enjoy this. It is a pretty tight list for those decks, unfortunately, especially if you play modern.
Your lands are always a very complicated section of your like affinity decks. This is something you might be able to find room for 1. Yeah. I'm gonna say
probably fights with like Fomori Vault for those decks that run that one.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna finish games by pumping your flyer, or help you grind by just making some robots. So you have 6 total mana, right? This plus 5 mana. It's maybe not the best shape for you, but it is a very powerful land.
Next we have Starfield Shepherd, the third 3 white angel that we've seen this set with Warp 2. That's 3/2 flyer. When this creature enters, search your library for a basic plains card or a creature card with mana value 1 or less. Deal it, put into your hand, and then shuffle. Yeah. It's not that bad. It's a it's not a Guardian Eos.
Oh, Ranger Captain?
Yeah, Ranger Captain. It's similar to a Ranger Captain. It can come out later for 5. It gets blinked very nicely, just getting you the land drops you need, or your 1 drops that can be pretty important.
Yeah, I mean this is kind of, it's not as good as like Overlord of the Baelmerk is, but we can think of it kind of similarly, where you do, maybe this is copy 5 and 6 of your Overlord, where Flash and Felia, untap, play your 2-drop that you're gonna flicker with Felia. You're gonna keep a 3/2 flyer, which is pretty good. You're gonna get a land or a creature with each trigger. Obviously the deck's not really playing 1-drop creatures right now, but I mean I've seen and even played builds where they adopt like Guide Pride. You have the new Angel 1-drop as well. Maybe you play these, get a little bit lower to the ground to enable this as well. The Guide Pride builds are pretty solid. Obviously, they're very powerful cards. So maybe this is something that takes black-white in that direction. And It maybe pushes the deck into a little bit of a faster build, which is probably going to be good for the deck overall, where you have a bit faster hands, but you still have all that grind potential as well.
Well, it's interesting, and of course, with more sets coming out, more one draws to be added to the deck. So if there is a good, Orzhov one drop, this could see play. Hopefully.
Flicker your white spells.
Mm-hmm.
You got to do it.
Card packages. Boy, oh boy, do I love Hardened Scales, and we got some good food this set. So to start us off, we have the Rust Harvester, a 1 red, 1/1 menace. 2 to tap, exile an artifact card from your graveyard, put a counter on this creature, and deals damage equal to its power to any target. So it's a pretty steep price, especially for a Scales deck. This is fighting against Agathos, which has a lot better of an effect. The artifacts are getting very slim. The ones you want to play, so there's not that many artifacts you kind of just throw away and just eat up to get fuel for this. But dealing with any threat is very nice. Unlike Walking Ballista, this keeps its power and can scale a lot better. But
Realistically, you're probably not activating its ability a ton. It's going to be a 1-drop 1/1 artifact with menace. You can put additional counters on this through your normal like Hardened Scales ways, and it's just kind of like a little bit of a sneaky attacker that's going to be hard to block out and can grow pretty big. Not great with Cauldron, but not all your artifacts have activated abilities. You can Cauldron this creature to put that on all of your creatures, and suddenly blocks don't matter. Not that blocks were a big deal for the deck anyways, but it's another way to get around stuff. You get to... It's almost like a fling effect, but you keep your creature, which is good. And like, maybe it's way, way over the top, but if you have Ballista under a Cauldron and this creature, you're just doubling the amount of damage that Ballista has for your potential there. So deck probably needs to get more resilient than more aggressive, but maybe more aggressive is just good enough to get in under the nasty interaction spells that are causing the deck trouble.
Next card. Oh my god. Do my eyes deceive me? Is that our second 1-drop Hardened Scales? More or less. Floating Zone is a 3-green, warp green enchantment. If one or more counters would be put on a creature, spacecraft, or planet you control, twice that many of each of those kinds of counters are put on it instead. This is a doubling season for 1 mana temporarily, but if you just kill your opponent before the end step, this has done its job.
Yeah, it does. It does make it feel like you want to be more explosive combo-y with your Hardened Scales, which maybe Rust Harvester also kind of leans into. So maybe that's the way you go building the deck.
Like this in a Hardened Scales, you're getting 4 counters whenever you do something, which is scary for your opponents and makes Walking Ballista Alliance essentially sleepwalking at that point.
4 mana is a lot on the kind of top end to be playing this out, but maybe you develop for a few turns and then you just play this out, just do some activated ability things, and then have like a kill or like a really huge value turn or something like that happens. 4 mana is not the worst, but it's too much mana to be like a reliable way to play the card.
This feels like you play it out, you go for your combo kill, they stop you in what sense they can, and then you just play this later for when you have. When
Yeah, maybe it helps you out later.
Setting up for the next one. This is just a answer me now or I kill you. If you do answer me, I come back with a vengeance. And then next we have Drydrin, Synthesis Amalgam, X Lesnia for Trample 0/1. Answers with a number of counters on and equal to the amount of mana spent to cast it. Whenever you attack, you may remove a counter from each 2 creatures you control. If you do, draw a card, create a 2/2 robots. This comes down base stats as a 2/3, which is still pretty good. Just putting 1 mana in this with like a loading zone down makes it into a 4/5, which is kind of crazy. And then say you have, 1 or 2 counters on another creature, you can just eat 2 of those, draw a card, make him another body, kind of get more fuel. This is probably the more of a resilient path if you want to go with Hardened Scales, which seems pretty interesting. And Celestia seems to be a pretty good colored combo with the cards we've been getting. There's Bright Glass from Aether Drift. You can squeeze back in
very nice, like card advantage spells in these kind of green-white.
And it has Trample, which is very good for this deck when you're putting 20 counters on.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Hardened Scales becomes tier 1. Next, we have a whole lot of black cards. So, sort of thoughts, we have Timeline Color, black with a Warp, black pay 2 life. It's a 2/2 haste, and you can cast this from your graveyard using its Warp ability. So this is a pretty strong card, even though you're losing the 2 life. This can immediately make that trade a net 0, and then you have a 2/2 body to bring back at a later time. This also lets you do loops with it pretty easily, just because it costs 1 to bring back. So if you can, stabilize with the life and the mana, there's an infinite loop just by itself with the added cards. I am so excited for this card personally.
Yeah, I mean, it's another one of these low to the ground kind of recurring black creatures. They're almost always like solid. They can find a space depending on exactly what you're looking to slot into the deck. We have an increasing selection of options for that. So depending on what exactly you need your recurring creature to do, this is a strong option.
Next we have Susarian Voidborn for 2 and a black. 2/2 warp 1. Again, when there's a creature or another creature or artifact control dies, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So we're 2 parts of a 3-part combo here. Getting both of these down for 2 mana total is very nice. This lets you pop off pretty easily. For any loop, if you're making like an artifact, like a treasure or something, to get that mana back with a timeline, you're looking at 3 sacks there, which is kind of crazy. No, 2 sacks. And it's the 2 toughness on it's kind of rough, but 3 CMC on a card is very important. Getting out of Fatal Push and like command range is always nice.
Yeah, and just kind of like the Hardened Scales that we were looking at, like you can just warp it for 1, try to do your combo thing, and then this just exiles and you can play it again later. It is a very, very nice tool. Lets you have these kind of explosive combo turns where you just kind of play most of your combo, maybe all of your combo, just straight out of your hand. You do this on like turn 3 or something like that. Or you just suddenly deploy a bunch of pieces of your combo and kill your opponent. Makes it hard for your opponent to develop against you or tap out against you in those early turns, and just gives you a lot of very scary potential in what's hidden in your hand.
Next we have Umbral Collar Zealot for 1 and a black, 3/2. Sacrifice another creature artifact, surveil 1. Please, WotC, just give us a 1-drop that surveils. It's so nice.
Yeah. Obviously, Viscera Seer comes to mind, though that one is Scry, right? Putting into the graveyard is much better than Scrying one for pretty much every deck. Obviously, you're a black deck, you're sacrificing things, you want stuff in the graveyard. And the fact that you can sacrifice artifacts is a nice little bonus, or maybe this is in your artifact deck instead of your creature sacrifice deck. Yeah, definitely a shame that it's not 1 mana, but you get a bit better of a body as well. Rear cost, 3/2 in your formats like Standard and Pioneer for 2 is a nice place to be. It trades with a lot of stuff. It can be it can be solid pressure as well. All around. Uncommon cards, pretty good.
We got good stuff this set. Cards with potential. Starting off with Thrumming Hivepool, 6-drop. Affinity for Slivers. That's the first time we've ever seen that. Slivers control have double strike and haste. At the beginning of your upkeep, create 2 1/1 colorless sliver creature tokens.
Commander players, buy this for your sliver deck. Everyone else, sell it to the commander players who play sliver.
There is that. I would probably dump this as fast as possible, and then when they tank, buy them up again for that playset. So, not to sound crazy, slivers have good creatures. The creatures, of course, always, as we know, feed into each other.
Double strike and haste is pretty aggressive as well.
Those are probably the most necessary effects, I think, outside of trample. Your kind of 3 crowning ones.
It's cool that this is kind of a setup card and a payoff, where it's like, okay, you're going to be churning out bodies,
so you're
going to be kind of grinding that way. But if you already have a big board, this is going to be 0 mana very easily. Suddenly everything has double strike and haste.
You play a bunch of your slivers fast, you dump this out, your board gets dealt with or whatever, and then you just make more, you make more, and then you finally get that 1 or 2 sliver that kind of just either buffs your board or just sets you up for, very hard to deal threats, and then you just take them to town. Of course, if we do get more slivers in the future, this will be very interesting to see pop back up. It's probably one of the strongest tribal effects. Any other goblins would go crazy for this. Zombies, humans.
This is just the fact that it can cost 0 mana is silly. Affinity is a silly keyword. And there's no colored pips, right? So.
It's a card and a half. Next we have Requiem Monolith for 2 and a black. Tap until end of turn, target creature gains whenever this creature is dealt damage. Draw that many cards and lose that much life. A creature's controller may have this artifact to deal 1 damage to it. Activate only as a sorcery.
Potential to draw a lot of cards. You're gonna lose a lot of life though. Very interesting card design.
It's very interesting. It's also, if you can somehow make opponent's creature happy indestructible, it just kills them with Bowmaster, which is pretty funny.
It doesn't quite. Oh, because.
You deck them and they lose life.
Because they are drawing. Yeah.
It's hard to wrap your head around.
No, that does kind of. That's funny. That's funny. If there were super popular indestructible creatures, that could be a funny backdoor combo or something.
I mean, it's one of those cards where you'll see it pop up in some weird deck that just 5-0s and then vanishes the minute after. So
it's always good to keep an eye on the cards that draw multiple cards.
Yeah.
Maybe more interestingly, Reanimator cards.
Speaking of Reanimate, we have Zoo Ephit, Osteoharmonist for 1 black. 2/3, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It's a skeleton in addition to its other types and has no abilities. Activate only as a sorcery. Phyrexian Dreadnought is a 1 mana 12/12. If you bring that back with 0 abilities, it stays on the board as a 12/12. There is a lot of creatures that essentially kill themselves when they enter, so making them not do that is always fun.
Yeah, put Death Shadow into play. It's a 13/13 for the first time in its life.
There's a couple of gods or elder titans they can just bring back really good stats that kind of sit around and do nothing because there's so many hurdles to get them out there, and et cetera, et cetera. There's probably
the fact that the creature has no abilities is largely bad for your reanimate spells, but maybe if you find the right card to bring back, or in the future they print the right card, it could be very good.
Also, there's just a lot of surprising skeleton synergy too. Yeah, there's the ones from
Murders has a few different skeleton
Case
things.
Of the Stash Skeleton. I think the big one was from
there've been a couple recently.
There's a 3-drop skeleton's control, like hasten something.
Right. Yeah. There's definitely been some skeletons here and there. This is also a wizard, if you care to cast Flame of an Orb, but
so
this is probably not a spell for those formats.
It's an interesting card. We'll probably see it pop up in some weird unhinged deck. Weapons manufacturing. 1 in a red. Enchantment. Whenever a non-token artifact control enters, create a colorless artifact token named Munitions. When this token leaves the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to any target. So if you're casting a lot of non-token artifacts, here's a couple of bullets. Start shooting at people.
Yeah, seems like a potentially powerful card for Burden Scales. Obviously, this is an artifact set, so we're probably going to keep saying that. But
Just one more time will be good.
like, you have ways to sacrifice artifacts already. Also could be good for the I'm gonna blank on the name, but the Boros lobster who wants to sacrifice foods. And turns all your artifacts into slews, so you can, what is that, 5 damage when you activate him, sacrificing munitions. So, yeah, I mean, just roll your bomb and a little bit of bread and chuck it at your enemy.
And I mean, the old Affinity decks were like sack based with Arcbound Ravager.
Right, yeah, like
So-
obviously Ravager seems like incredibly powerful with something like this. And then this also maybe gives you more reason to play like a Mox Opal build or something like that, just to trigger this more as well.
Next we have Wefstalker Ardent, 2 in a red, 2/3 with Warp Red. Whenever another creature or artifact you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. Much like the black one we saw recently, just getting a combo piece down at 1 mana is very nice. This 3 toughness is nice. Being at 3 CMC is nice. It's chunky in the ways that really matter, and it just can combo pretty easily with some stuff. There's probably
you got
nothing.
a 1 mana like Impact Tremors, which gives you like a very efficient for the 1 turn option.
And of course, with like all the warp effects, your Birthing Ritual, Eldritch Evolution cards that let you sack something to get something of higher mana value are very nice with them.
It's true.
So playing this down with like a Birthing Ritual in play, you get the juice out of it, and then you kick the can for something else. Always a very nice combo. Next we have Devastating Onslaught, XX in a red. Create X tokens that are copies of target artifact or creature you control. Those tokens gain haste until end of turn. Sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. So making a bunch of tokens of something is always nice to do. Giving them haste is very nice. Sacrificing is kind of rough, but if you have 1 munition and you turn it into 10, that can be pretty interesting.
It's going to be a lot of mana to sink into, but if you're a deck that, maybe you find yourself with too much mana, sometimes you're like bricking, you're drawing lands or something like that, you can maybe have a mana sink like this, though it itself can be a bad top deck. Probably can't play more than 1 or 2 of these in a deck, but it's a potential like big splashy top end to play in your like artifact decks especially.
So there's like Storm Scale Sign, which goes kind of crazy with this. So if you
That already has Storm.
Storm again. Pickups for Max. Oh boy, is that 3 black cards that care about sacking? You sure bet it is. I love sacking. I love Soul Trader. These cards will probably go in. Sure will be put in for probably a day and cut out sadly for another utility land. But
They keep feeding more really, really safe designed utility lands.
they're gonna bait me enough times where my hand comes out with the cage fast, and if I grab them,
Eventually, it's not going to be bait. Eventually, it's just going
one
to be
more
good,
time.
and no one's going to believe you. It's going to be like the Boy Who Cried Wolf. You're like, I swear it's good. No one will believe you till it's too
Soul
late.
Trader's been picking up steam, which is nice. With Voidborn, we now have targeting, so Forsaken Miner is now a lot more viable,
Mhm.
which is pretty cool. Birthing Ritual goes crazy with both of these options.
Yeah, just opens up more lines for the deck to play, and depending on what maybe you're playing around or exactly how you want to sequence your cards, you can kind of switch up which package you play.
The deck is already annoying to deal with just because how recursive it is, so getting me more threats that do that is always a beautiful sight. And
It's got the most black pips in its costs, and what more do I need? I've been playing a lot of Pioneer recently as well, playing like Mono Black and that. Having the ability to exile creatures or planeswalkers is definitely going to be big. I can see the other effects being important for different matchups as well, or just different situations. The card is sweet. I always wish that they would push black cards a little bit further, but I think this is probably good enough. Give me something broken. That's what I want.
please just
I
push
want-
my decks into tier 1.
When was the last time we banned a black card? Grief. And then Legacy banning around Reanimate.
There is the one in Neo.
Invoke Despair.
Yeah.
You play that in Pioneer though, so we're good.
Dear God,
This card's just sick. Probably like 1 or 2. Probably can't play more than that, even in your slower decks.
Yeah, I mean, black decks that like to control and play an instance.
Yeah.
I love them.
You see, like Murderous Rider actually sees pretty good performance in
Really?
Pioneer. Yeah. It's 2 spells, removes any creature or any planeswalker. And then the life-linking body is definitely relevant. It allows you to be super interactive and then just get a body into play to slowly beat your opponent down. And when you're playing a little bit more control-y, this is probably in a similar slot there, where you get the same kind of removal effect, better depending on what you're teching against. I mean, exiling a Phoenix is better than destroying one. I'll tell you that much, because that Phoenix is going to come right back if you don't exile it. And then this, though you don't get both, this can be a source of card advantage as well, like we talked about. Just a powerful card, and you know what? The art is pretty sick.
It is. This one's upside down. I'm gonna do my rule of 3 here, man. Anyways,
Gotta
that
have
is
3, man.
that is all we have for you today. Thank you again for watching our videos. We do love our 10 consistent viewers. You guys mean something to me, I think. I'll find it out eventually.
How many more do you need? They're loyal. They keep coming back.
They do. I don't know why.
It's me.
Is it 10 times?
It's me.
Is it just what you do at work?
No, they're coming back for me.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I know it's
Alright.
hard for you to believe, but
Tyler Fan Club, nice to see you guys. Have a good one.